Motivation Manifesto is our book, and we are in section 2. Is that 6 and 7? We shall not break. No,
5 and 6.
5 and 6. I'm sorry. We shall practice joy and gratitude, and we shall not break integrity.
Yes. All right. So we shall practice joy and gratitude. That one, I think this was my favorite chapter of the two. But again, he reiterates that people walk around with no joy, no vitality, no sense of freedom, and no positivity in themselves or in people at all. So they're basically given up. And so this chapter focuses on how we can take that traditional feeling that people live in 100% of the time and try to find joy in everything that they do. So we need to be appreciative, positive, and drivers of blessings. Freely choose our attitude is the most important thing of everything that we do. Are we choosing to be in a good mood or a bad mood? And so it's he says that joy is more conscience. It's a habit, a practice. Aim for a joyous life. So it's interesting because I think, again, we have all been evolving a lot through our books and learning a lot. And I feel like our group is fairly joyous all the time and try to find joy in everything. And it's neat to think that there could be more joy out there, that we could be even more joyful. And one of the questions I had early on in this chapter was, gosh, how can you remind yourself to always find joy in everything that you do? Like, the old rubber band trick or something. But he kind of attacks that later. So, definitely thinking, are we lacking any joy in our lives today? It was neat. He did say, be more curious. Dave, and he brought that up last week or the week before about how this book is sparking your curiosity, finding that pleasure in the small things. And he really related it to being like happy children, that you give them a box, stick, dirt, rocks, whatever, and they will have more fun than you would have in your whole house full of furniture and stuff. So it's being like the children, where what you do becomes almost play. He referenced like sports athletes who love to run, and it's become something that they find joy in and really love it. It's a passion of theirs. And so feels like, I know personally, I have leaps and bounds before everything in my life is to that level of where this is, 100% fun, 100% of the time. I'm sure. Do you guys relate on that?
Yeah, I mean, like for me, it's one of those things where I think this is a skill I've been practicing for a really long time. I feel like a lot that we read in this book is, to your point, Natalie, this is not our first book. And so we've been reading an awful lot. I mean, we've pounded through, I think I told y'all the other day, I think we read like 10 or 12 books this year or something.
Wow.
Yeah, so I don't think it was quite 12. I think it was 10. I mean, we read almost a book a month, which was really good. But I will tell you, like, finding a positive solution in every situation is so important because it takes a situation that can be very frustrating and makes it not. Something that just happened to me this week, my mom is on a lot of medication, and I think that, she's not cognizant of it. God hope she doesn't watch this. But I don't think she's cognizant of how she behaves around people anymore. Right? Like, we've been trying to do lunch since 2020. She lives next door. And her idea of planning a lunch is calling me 30 minutes before she wants to go. Well, I don't have that kind of flexibility in my schedule for a non-emergency. Like, I got a call today that I'm shifting my entire schedule around for, but it was somewhat of an emergency for the person that needed it, right? Not really an emergency. If I didn't go to the event, no one would explode. But to the person, to the little kid in that event, it would have been a big deal if there wouldn't have been somebody from her family watching her on stage. So I shifted that. Oh, he's coming. I shifted, that whole day, but I won't do that for a lunch for my mom, right? And I was, I keep telling her, I'm like, Mom, like let's plan something 2 weeks out and we'll do it. And she's like, no, I don't know if I'm going to feel good. In her defense, she doesn't. But I'm like, it's better to cancel than not, which makes us both frustrated about the situation. And I was actually in the shower and I was like, this morning, I was like, oh, well, I guess I could just personally schedule something. Then call her at the last minute and be like, hey, Mom, you want to go to lunch? Because to her, she can't find love or happiness in planning it. To her, feeling loved means I thought about her in an instant, right? Like out of context. And so I was like, oh, that is a way I could take this situation and make it happy for her, way less stressful for me. And who the fuck cares if she knows I have it planned or not?
Exactly.
Like literally, who cares? I'm literally the only person that knows. And so I think that, just changing the way you look at different situations changes your ability to be happy, unhappy, stressed out, not stressed out, or whatever. And so I always say to the kids, you can't control your first reaction, right? If somebody punches you in the face, you're probably going to be pissed, but you can control the second. And I think that that's where you start controlling the happiness, right? If the initial reaction is not happy, the second one needs to be, right? The one that you force forward needs to be.
Yeah, I honestly, I feel like you have to practice gratitude on a regular basis in order to kind of recognize those opportunities to flip those situations, on their head. Because essentially, to your point with your example, it's like you could easily just kind of go the same way you were going about it before, right? Oh, you didn't plan this. I don't have time. Oh, you didn't plan this. I didn't have time. But it's just like, to your point, why don't I plan it ahead of time? And you don't really have to know about it. It doesn't really matter, you know?
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, that just takes a practice of gratitude, right? It's just you stopping and being like, well, I'm grateful my mother even wants to take me to lunch. Sure, it might not be exactly when I want it to be,
Right.
but practicing that gratitude probably brought you to the point of, well, why don't I just beat her to it?
Right.
Yeah. And that was a neat part of the book too that he got to is, kind of that trick, the rubber band trick is just remembering to be thankful for everything. And when I was reading through that chapter, I was sitting in my kitchen and I just kind of looked around at everything I had. I got beautiful island, I have fresh fruit, I have, all this amazing stuff. The sky's blue, there's no it's not raining today. And it's just everything around you that if you just the smallest things, the biggest things, if you're thankful for, you're gonna naturally have way more joy in your life. And so I think that's the trick is being thankful or having gratitude. Exactly, David.
Hi, Chris.
So, hi,
Hi, Chris.
how are you? Sorry I'm late, folks.
Oh, you good?
It's been I need to start practicing some of this book information that we're then little
He-
tidbits.
He was very thankful for our printer this morning, which I broke.
I'm not very thankful for our printer this morning, and no, it probably works better now because probably that piece of printer product, if you will, the guts of the printer that we broke. That was probably the thing that kept getting the paper jammed. So now that that's gone, it probably doesn't jam the paper anymore.
Yeah.
And so far it's printing without an issue.
All I know is the paper's not jammed and he's now happy.
I've been always happy. I cannot not be happy with my life. So there's that. I get stressed and I get frustrated and bitter, but I'm always happy.
That's a skill.
Well,
Anyway.
and something else that I want to start doing, which we were doing a while back, David, was writing our gratitudes every morning. So as I'm making my schedule for 2024, one of the first things Natalie and I talked about this on our coaching call yesterday was having that time allocated in the morning to write down the things that I'm thankful for, or that, you know, maybe my hopes and dreams, because I'm thankful for those, and just to have that all in one spot. Because I think that when you find yourself being ungrateful, to your point, Natalie, all you have to do is really just look around. We all have good health. We all are in fantastic relationships. We all have a lot of things going for us. And I think that a lot of times it's easier to focus on the negative. And I had a therapist tell me one time that a lot of times we move away from happiness and go immediately to anger or frustration, because the easiest defined feeling is anger or frustration. And a lot of times, if you are angry or upset or mad about something, if you stop and think about the situation, you're probably not actually angry. It's just hard to define. Are you scared? Are you nervous? Is it overwhelming? Like, what is it? I think if you can define the actual feeling behind that emotion, it tends to make the gratitude perspective of it easier. Because even if you are scared, right? If you've got to give a speech and you yell at the person who asks you to, you know, hold the door for them as you're walking into the building, well, you're just nervous, right? And at that moment, if you can realize it's nerves and not anger, and you hurry up, don't walk so slow, or whatever, I'm in a hurry, whatever. If you stop, I think it's easier to pick out, that emotion and then turn it into, okay, what am I grateful for in that situation, despite that emotion?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he kind of talks about too, even who are you around? If you're by somebody who's angry, it's so much easier for you to be angry too.
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
You ever go to a room and it's that one person that just has so much life, and you could walk into that room with so much attitude, and then as soon as they open their mouth, man, I'm so grateful for the way it looks outside, yada yada yada. Next thing you know, it's just all gone. Right? It's really powerful, like who you keep around you.
Well, that's funny you say that, because the other night teenagers are awful, and neither one of you have teenagers yet. But from like 13 to 16, they're just fucking mad. They're just angry humans. And our youngest is in that just fucking mad stage of life. And the other night he came down to dinner. Who knows what he was angry about? Like, literally, who knows? But it was almost funny to watch him, because Craig and I don't like Mike's husband will die on that hill, right? Like, if a kid comes down with an attitude, he will argue with them to try to make them get in a better mood, and that just doesn't work. So don't try it. It just doesn't work. So in our house, we take the approach more of, we just ignore it like it doesn't exist, as long as it doesn't get past a certain threshold. And I don't know if Craig noticed at the dinner table the other night, but he would sit there, and our kids are funny. Okay. Like, legitimately, our kids are just funny, and they will throw each other the bus. Like, at the dinner table, they will be like, well, Josh has 2 girlfriends. He's a player. And it's true. He's like straight up talking to 2 girls right now. Well, but that's everybody's reaction, right? At the dinner table. And the whole time Tristan's eating, he's like, and then you see one side go, oh, and I looked at him, made it all angry again. But by the end of dinner, being in an environment where literally everyone at the kitchen table, I mean, we were having ourselves a good time. Like, we had lit the menorah. It was, whatever. I mean, it was just a good time that we were having. The whole family was there. Alex was home from college. And by the end of the dinner, you would have never known he was an asshole 16-year-old. You'd have thought he was like, either younger or older and just a regular part of the family. But he actually ended up hanging out with the family for a little while that night. I mean, we did have Hanukkah gifts, so there was motivation to stay downstairs longer. But even after he opened the present, he stayed, right? Like, he stayed on the couch, he hung out, he laughed with his siblings. I think happiness tends to be infectious, right? Like, if you're around happy people, and I think frustration, anger, and the other ones are the same.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was very funny to watch, though. He was trying so hard to be angry.
And then he forgot why he was angry. Good job.
Right. Kudos
Right.
to you guys for creating that environment with your kids.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So on to the next one, chapter 6, we shall not break integrity. This one was interesting too. We let ourselves break our integrity with the little things. It starts. It's not like you just go out and rob a bank. It's the little things of not rounding up or I'm sorry, rounding up or whatever it might be. Little things that little white lies or whatever it might be to break your integrity, and it slowly chips away. Little things become bigger things. You get more comfortable with it, and before you know it, your integrity is kind of gone. And so he says that we need to aim to be our highest self. We will not bend on our values. And we need to create clarity, align thoughts with values in life, and just hold ourselves to those, like, being darn near 100%, 100% of the time, which is pretty amazing. And I think hopefully you guys had an opportunity to kind of reflect on your own lives and think, where have you bent on your integrity and character, and so hopefully you didn't have too many instances or things that you need to fix personally. But he said the three characteristics, or the three things, the three C's: the character, type of person we want to be; connections, more thoughtful for every scenario. I thought that was really interesting because he kind of shared the scenario of husband and wife, and where where a wife could come to the husband and be upset about something, and the husband could either be just as upset as she is and give that same emotions back to her and really escalate this scenario versus de-escalate it, or he could be that strong backbone that helps her with whatever she might need in that moment. And I thought that was interesting because it's how do we interact with everyone in our everyday lives, and are we doing what we should be doing for during those scenarios. So and then the last one was the contributions. What do we want to make creativity meaningful and important to me? He had commented that if it doesn't give you 100% joy or if you're not 100% passionate in it, should you really be pursuing it? And so, quick question for you guys, based on like character, what are the qualities we want to be remembered by? Did you guys have any strong terms that came to mind?
That was a very interesting question to pop up for me, just because I think about it a lot. Like I think about what are people, because my big why is having a positive impact on 1 million people, right? Like that's why I get up every day. That's why I do what I do. And so I think about that a lot. And I find that the more you focus on that, the easier it is to make sure you don't break what those points of integrity are for you. And he was also talking about, like only do things if you're 100%, like 100%. Because I think when you're 100% in, I think your desire to do it with integrity and at your highest level is there. And so, I watch like kids with school. I mean, you take my son, he does not do school with integrity at all. He actually does school like an asshole. He hates it. He could do it. He's smart enough, but then you watch him on the mat and you watch him wrestle, and because he's 100% in, he may lose a match. And let me tell you, he's one of those little dickheads. When he loses a match, he'll slam his hands down on the mat if he gets pinned or whatever. But when he gets up, the moment that matters, he walks over, because in wrestling, I don't know if you've ever watched a wrestling match, but the boys are taught a lot of integrity in that sport. In my opinion, it's one of the highest levels of integrity taught in a sport, because when you finish wrestling, whether you win or lose, you go to the other coach and you shake both coaches' hands on the other team. When you're done with the match, before they raise your hand, the wrestlers shake each other's hands at the end and at the beginning. They are required. They'll get disqualified if they don't. Like they can lose their win if they don't. And I like the fact that sport creates that kind of environment, because it's very cool to watch your kid, getting his ass kicked, and then hear him stand on the side of the mat while his coach is ripping him a new one and say, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Right. His integrity never goes anywhere when he's on that mat, because he is 100% in. There's nothing more important than that in that moment in his life. And I think that that's such a good lesson. And I'm hoping that he learns to use that everywhere in life, because I think it makes you more successful.
Nice. Yep. David or Craig?
I'm sorry.
So I would say I probably want to be remembered for like what is it, like empathy?
Hmm.
And then what is it? I think one thing that kind of gets me a lot is, and one thing out of this chapter that kind of got me was what is it? Where he talks about essentially like, you know, just saying no to the things that you're not 100% passionate on. I feel like sometimes I've done things because I'm good at them. And I feel like sometimes those are the things that I kind of fall behind on. And it kind of makes sense to his point, because it's, you know, maybe you're not 100% in it. You know, maybe you're not 100% excited about it. Maybe you're not 100%, you know, you might be excited about the money or the contract, but maybe you're just not excited about the work. So for me, I feel like that's one thing historically I've always struggled with. It's kind of good to hear like his aspect on it, because honestly, kind of hearing it that way, it makes it a little bit easier to say no sometimes. Right? It's like, you know, I'm being completely honest, maybe I'm not the best person for this, or maybe, you know, I should refer you to whatever for this, you know, but if you have this, you know, come back and see me, you know, yada yada yada. But yeah, I don't know, for me it's really more empathy, just being remembered for, you know, being empathetic, being compassionate, being, you know, relatable, but not necessarily folding, just actually being able to relate to other people, and kind of understand what it is that they're going through.
Nice. And Craig, what are the qualities you want to be remembered by?
So empathetic for sure, and reliable, I guess. I mean, I guess, and some kind of a positive legacy on creating left more than I took, if you will. That I want to take a lot, so hopefully I leave a lot, because I definitely want to, you know, do grow myself and somewhat be selfish, right? That is definitely an important part of building our family and everything else that's going along with that. But at the same time, I want to leave more than I'm also taking, and whether that's kind of building, you know, our kids to be able for them to be successful people and to kind of be a positive impact on society. And I want to be, you know, when shit hit the fan, you know, hopefully, you know what, when shit hit the fan, we called Craig and he was there for us, or he was there for me, or whatever the case may be. You know, I don't want to say I'm a rock by any means, but I want to be that, you know, that he was there for us when we needed him, kind of thing.
Nice. Yeah, and I would kind of say I keep falling back on that word love, and just known for all love to give. And I think that kind of embraces a lot of what you guys said too, with empathy, reliability, and always kindness. Kindness too is key. I really thought it was interesting, the connections piece about, you know, this might be something that we want to take home as homework for the next week, but is finding that person in our lives that we want to make sure that connection is right, and that when you interact with that person, it's on point, and that you're interacting them in a way that will that's purposeful and should be, you know, the best way to interact with that person based on those scenarios. So then he talked about the 6 practices of integrity, and those were: think before we act, never commit anything we lack passion on, so that's the 100% enthusiasm, keep our word so that people can count on us, always treat others with respect, doing our best with what they have, or I'm sorry, always treat others with respect, so knowing that those people at that time are doing the best they can with the resource or their abilities at that time. Tell the truth. Many lies equals many lives. I thought that was a good quote. And then always favor action. Again, falling back on his quote from other chapters that, action is the best thing to be judged on. And so I didn't know if any of these practices around wisdom and virtue or on integrity that you guys feel like you need to work on more or feel like you're really good at, or what's focused, which ones you want to focus on?
The second one for me, I feel like it kind of affects some of the other ones. But I feel like I'm the best at the first one you mentioned. I forgot.
React.
Yeah.
And then the one that you want to work on is committing anything that you lack passion on.
Yeah, I would say the one that I need to probably work on is overcommitment. I think sometimes and I'm getting better at that. So I would say that, that has probably been something that I was super focused on this year. Just because I tend to say yes, and then sometimes I feel like I'm getting beat up because no one else helps. And as your kids get older, Natalie, you're about to learn this. There will be 5 parents in each class that helps, and there's 30 kids.
Oh.
And then by the time Lulu's in 5th grade, you're going to be going, what the fuck? I'm over this. Because if you do what I did and you always say yes, because there's not somebody else there because you don't want your kid to miss out.
Yep.
I think that at the end of a scenario or a situation or an event or whatever, at the end of a time period, you tend to be maybe bitter and not nice, and you're lacking in compassion, and you're biting someone's head off, and all they did is ask you a reasonable question. So mine is probably really committing to only the things that I want to commit to, because I have allowed over the last probably 2 decades while my kids were in school, a very large number of people to know that I will say yes. Mm-hmm. And so we hosted a party last night, and my only job was supposed to be hosting, like providing the house, and nothing else was done. There were 2 or 3 other people that, I had 30 girls show up at my house, and the pizza was supposed to be there, and it wasn't even ordered. Yeah. And when I found out who was supposed to order it, it almost felt personal. Mm-hmm. Right? When it probably really wasn't. He probably just forgot. But it felt personal because of who it was. And, in my head, every time I do something for the lacrosse team right now, and it has nothing to do with my kid or the lacrosse team, there's just some adults that are stressful for me to work with. But every time I say yes, I'm not happy. Like I was last night. Last night was fine. Jordan wanted to do that, and her and I, whatever. She had asked if we could host. But there's a lot of times, like when I made the t-shirts for the lacrosse team in December, that didn't bring me any joy. Like it literally was a headache. Whereas 4 years ago or 6 years ago, when I did it for the first time, like I got my Cricut out, I was excited, and to the book's point, I probably should have stopped saying yes to the lacrosse team the day my ex-husband took over. Like, should have just said no, because saying yes to him is not fun, And so I think for me, that'll be the one that I continue to work on. Although I will say I'm getting much better. Although I did not say no today to this 2:00 meeting. That was not on my schedule. Should have been, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I like similar. I probably need to say no sometimes. I'm definitely a yes person. I don't like telling anybody no. And it definitely causes issues in a variety of different aspects here, whether it's a personal life, whether it's a business life, whether it is a combination of both, or something else in between. And that's probably a combination of too much yesing because I want to please everybody, and poor time management that, I got to be more understanding and comprehensive of that. There's only 24 hours in a day and I can't work all 24 of them. Or I can't be doing something all 24 hours of them. It pushes me to a point of bad stress, I guess. And so I don't do that a little bit better moving forward. on that. One, be cognizant of what I'm saying yes to and why I'm saying yes, and make sure it's good, it's something that falls within my wheelhouse as far as what I need or what I want at that time, and not just to say yes, which also makes me feel good. But sometimes saying yes when you shouldn't, you shouldn't.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if I answered the question, but I think so.
I think so. And then he kind of wrapped up this chapter by talking about the 7 temptations of your integrity, which were impatience, disappointment, desperation, aggression, hurt, loyalty, and power. So I didn't know if you guys have anything left on this chapter or anything you want to discuss or dig into on the 7 temptations. Any of those strike you as, oh.
I think it's funny how they're all very similar emotions. All the temptations are very, very, very similar. It's not like, he talks about too much other stuff, but they're all those really negative emotions. And so, my focus again, probably since the therapist told me that, is to define the emotion and then move into a positive realm of whatever that situation is.
I found a TikTok that made me think of the 7 temptations that he kind of mentioned, because the guy it's just like a quick little TikTok, obviously, and he kind of goes through and he'll be like, if you're feeling impatient, then do this. And then he kind of goes through like several different scenarios, and he hits most of the ones that the guy talks about in the book. And he just has a really good option for each one, and some stuff that I would have never even thought of. Which it made me think of this book because it was kind of like taking those several temptations and then turning around and almost combating them all with actions.
Wow. Well, if you find it, you'll have to share it with us all.
Yes, I will. I know exactly where it's at. I'll share it.
Nice.
Perfect.
All right. So to wrap up, the next week readings will be the balance of the book. It is, I think, it's about an hour and 10 minutes of content. So you gotta give yourself more than an hour to finish it, but that will wrap up the book and the year.
Perfect. And is everybody okay? So we are doing, it sounds like everybody's kind of working next week with the intention to potentially be off for the week after Christmas. The first Tuesday of the month, I believe, is the 2nd, which I can be ready for. We could do the 2nd, the 8th, and start on the 2nd, but would you guys rather start on the 8th or start on the 2nd?
8th.
2 weeks off?
Yes.
Sheriff David wants it.
LOL.
If Kendra in town, that matters. I can't do it, but
Whose book is
Kendra
next?
will be home on the 8th. She'll be at the house, but I mean, we can't, no matter what we're doing, we can stop for 30 minutes, even if it's on the phone. I can have David record on his computer if we need to.
okay. Yeah, let's do the 8th.
Do
Do you
the
have
8th, that works. I have a whole bunch of them. Let me get in and look at what is in the list. And I'll pick one, and before next week, I'll have the book. That way you guys know what to buy and y'all can read over the holiday at your leisure.
That usually takes me the longest is buying the book, so that'd be great.
Right. Perfect. Well, then we will see you guys same place, same time, same day next week. Peace.